guys, I have a little bit of a different type of show for you today. Normally, I either have a live stream with a guest, we go in depth on something for like an hour, or I have one of the shorter prepared essays where I've thought through something. But today I wanted to give you a live update on what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. So obviously on Tuesday, I'm sure you already saw the footage. Jimmy Kimmel put out this horrendous lie about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And people make terrible jokes. Sometimes comedians make really black, dark jokes, even at opportune times. That wouldn't have been great, but it would have been understandable. That is a mistake that sometimes people make. They make jokes in poor taste. They try to be edgy in the wrong situations. Probably would have had mean words for Jimmy Kimmel, but I would not have been interested in going after his job. However, Jimmy Kimmel went another step. Jimmy Kimmel went beyond the line. What Jimmy Kimmel did was specifically, knowingly, after all the facts were out, he lied to his audience about who killed Charlie Kirk. We know, Jimmy Kimmel knew the fact that there was a leftist terrorist that killed Charlie Kirk. The guy had anti-fascist propaganda carved into his bullets. He was living with a man who was pretending to be a woman. Everything we had seen from his internet radicalization to the testimony of his friends and parents had said that this guy was a far leftist and really hated Charlie Kirk for the things that he believed. So Jimmy Kimmel's direct lie was a really, really heinous act for a few reasons. One, obviously, it covers up the reality that it was leftists who murdered Charlie Kirk. That means you're covering for these terror cells. They still exist in the United States. Antifa is still an active force in the United States. And by lying about this, you are covering up. It is like trying to lie about the Ku Klux Klan doing something bad. You are going out of your way to cover up the fact that this terrorist organization went ahead and killed someone just for speaking on a college campus. That means you are covering up for their culpability, for who really did this. Simultaneously, you're also feeding the idea of more radical leftists that it's only the right that is violent, and so therefore their continued actions are fine. I know people, again, in my real life, who still believe this insane conspiracy that Donald Trump wasn't really shot and it was all staged by like the CIA or something to get him installed into power. People like that consuming even more of the lies from Jimmy Kimmel just fall further and further into this perverse reality that has no connection to the real world. And that means they're willing to continue to use insane, incendiary language to encourage more and more violence because they think it's only the right that is actually taking any kind of action. And watching this on Tuesday night, I felt the need that something had to be done. I said this on Twitter. Look, Jimmy Kimmel has to lose his job after this. This is completely unacceptable. He is covering for terrorists. He is encouraging more terrorism by his actions, and he knows what he is doing by lying to his audience this way. There has to be a cost for this. And I said that into the void on Tuesday night, and then I remembered on Wednesday morning, wait, we can do this. Like, we can do this. We can make this happen. We don't have to sit around and wait for the Trump administration. We don't have to hope that someone, no, we can make this happen. So I put out the call on my Twitter. I gathered as many immediate big sponsors as I could find and kind of put their Twitter handles and made sure that everyone knew they should reach out to Disney and ABC and Jimmy Kimmel's producers and the actual advertisers. And we should be pushing full spectrum to make sure that this guy is pushed off the air. Not because we don't like some kind of joke, not because we don't believe in free speech, but because this guy is actually creating an environment to get people killed. He is actively lying about terrorism. He is covering for dangerous terror organizations, and he's knowingly doing it. This is all with the intention of ensuring that more and more terrorists can continue to operate on the left in the United States. So luckily, due to the number of large accounts that I interact with, follow me, that kind of thing, I was able to send this post out to people like Lives of TikTok and Mostly Peaceful Memes and Jack Posobiec and just these big accounts with huge reaches, and they were more than happy to jump in and push the idea, make sure that people saw what was going on. I also want to send a great big thank you to Jake Colglazer. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong there, but he was kind enough to compile even more contact information, phone numbers, emails. I also received some behind the scenes emails from people who don't want to be named, but we're doing the Lord's work, making sure that we could get the most direct line of access to all of these sponsors, all of these different corporations, all of these heads of boards, make sure they knew how people felt. Now, unbeknownst to me, simultaneously, Benny Johnson, who is a big MAGA mainstream podcaster, has huge audiences, knew Charlie Kirk. He was working the effort from a different angle at the same time. I didn't know about this, but our efforts were kind of meeting in the middle. He was actually going the elite theory route, which I really should have thought of, but he probably has a bigger reach and more influence to make that happen. I doubt I could have gotten those things done the way that he did, but he was very smart, and he went to one of the FCC commissioners, Brendan Carr, and said, hey, aren't they violating their FCC agreements? Because remember, broadcast TV is not like YouTube or a podcast or something. When you sign on to be on broadcast television, that broadcast television exists because the federal government has carved out a part of the broadcast spectrum for that corporation. And the deal between the federal government and the corporation is you get to broadcast on these airwaves that are otherwise public domain because we have an agreement that you're going to behave in a certain way. You have to provide a public service. You have to educate the public, let them know what the news is, and you have to be honest about it. And if you maliciously lie, if you knowingly lie, that's actually a listed violation of the FCC's deal with you for maintaining your broadcast status. And so Carr went out there and said, yeah, this looks like it could be a clear violation. And if ABC doesn't do something about this, then there's legitimate grounds to have their license pulled, to look at their broadcast license. Now, that was very smart, but that wasn't the only thing that Benny Johnson did. He also pushed on the affiliates. Remember, ABC is just putting the content out. It's the affiliate stations that actually technically distribute that content. So if you can get the affiliates to say that they don't want to carry the program, they can have a significant impact on whether or not the show actually airs on ABC. If a large number of affiliates won't carry it, it doesn't matter if ABC is producing it and putting it out. So he went to Nexstar and he went to Sinclair Broadcasting, and both of those very large affiliates said, no, actually, we're going to refuse to carry the Jimmy Kimmel show. We'll just play something else in its place, even though we're an ABC station. Our affiliates will not broadcast this. And of course, this is a huge, devastating hit to the sponsors because they are paying to make sure that that show goes out, that the message they put on that show goes out to all these different affiliates. So if you're losing large chunks of your audience before you've even aired a show, I mean, who knows what the actual backlash would have been, how many viewers he would have lost due to what he said. But on top of that, so many affiliates aren't even going to bother to broadcast the show. That's a huge hit. Now, of course, leftists are screeching all over the place. This is the end of free speech. You use the government to silence a comedian, yada, yada, whatever. All lies, all lies. First, I don't know which of these things ultimately leveraged ABC to make this decision. Was it the FCC license stuff? Was it the different affiliate pressure? Was it the pressure that we put on it from sponsors and other things from our side and the email campaign? I don't know. It's probably all of these things. There's also a very real point to be made that ultimately Jimmy Kimmel was in trouble. His contract wasn't looking good for renegotiations when it was up, and it was very clear from the failure of many different late night hosts that that format of TV is just kind of dying. And so in many ways, ABC may have already had one foot out the door for Kimmel and just said, you know what? It's just not worth the hassle. This guy's losing us money anyway. No one's watching this stuff. So just push him out the door. Either way, the point is that there was no undue influence from the federal government. This was a real violation by Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel makes the same agreement that anyone else does when he's on broadcast news. And his status as a comedian doesn't exempt him from lying about the news. He didn't make a joke and get fired for the joke. That is not what happened here. What happened here is Jimmy Kimmel, as he so often does, was giving a sermon to his people. He's not a comedian. He hasn't been funny in so long, it's insane. What he did is he got up in front of people and lied to them in a position of trust in the hopes that he could cover up a terrorist attack. That is not okay. That is a direct violation of the law. There is no reason that a guy like that should be granted an FCC licensed vehicle when it's violating the very agreement involved. So no, and in the end, they didn't even take the license. They didn't threaten to take the license. The chairman simply pointed out that yes, this is a violation. And if there was nothing done, then we would have to look into it because of course you could. That's like saying, hey, this car was broken into, so we have to look into it. That's our job as police. So it's not like they came up with some kind of draconian, tyrannical understanding to crush the free speech of somebody. No, most of the work was probably done by getting the affiliates to pull things and having, Disney executives bombarded by many, 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 many emails saying, what are you doing? Why are you letting this insane person get on your network and spew his hatred and lie and cover up a terrorist plot? Like, that's what actually did the pressure of this. I'm sure the FCC bit didn't hurt, but that was not ultimately the thing that I think probably pushed it over. It certainly wasn't the direct application of any kind of government restriction that got Jimmy Kimmel removed. All that to say, I just want to tell you guys from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because we started this effort at like 9 a.m. yesterday, and I came on the show, did the stream. It was originally about Pam Bondi, but obviously we needed to talk about Jimmy Kimmel. And in the last 15 minutes, I just kind of made an appeal. Hey, please get out there, contact these people, email these people, call these people, make this happen. We have to make this happen. It's not the most exciting or glamorous thing in the world. I don't really love doing the tattletale stuff. But like I said, this was not just stopping somebody who made like a mean joke or something, not even somebody who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death, though that would be heinous enough, but someone who's actively and maliciously lying to get more people killed, to cover up for terrorism, to enable more terrorism. That's who Jimmy Kimmel was. That's the kind of guy he was. That's the kind of person he was in and day out. And we just couldn't allow that anymore. The Charlie Kirk is dead because people like this won't stop trying to foment left-wing terrorism. And so some price had to be paid. And I'm very proud of you guys, and I'm very happy to say that the price was paid. And by dinner time, they had announced that Jimmy Kimmel was suspended indefinitely with no intention to return. Now, I've heard that much of this comes from the fact that he refused initially to apologize. He didn't think he had said anything wrong. At first, they were just going to try to smooth it over with an apology and get that by. FCC probably won't come after us if we come out and, correct the record and these kind of things. Maybe we can repair relationships with the different advertisers and the affiliates. But even then, he just wasn't willing to do it. He's too proud. He's too hateful. He's too, he just supports the terrorism, right? That's why he was covering for it, because ultimately he supports this stuff. And so he is no longer on the air. Now, Jimmy Kimmel, like a lot of, canceled celebrities, I'm sure will come back. He's going to start a podcast and make some money somewhere. But this one's important because it shows people there is a real cost, a high profile cost. And more importantly, and this one's clutch, it shows the right that we can win. We can win. We can just do things. You don't have to imagine the roles being reversed. You can reverse the roles. We wanted free speech. They wouldn't let us have free speech. They killed the free speech guy. All they understand is power. When Charlie Kirk was murdered in cold blood in front of his children, these people danced on his grave. They called him a bigot. They called him a fascist. They said he got what was coming. The world was a better place without him. They praised this act. So that's what we got with free speech. All they understand is power. Now that Jimmy Kimmel has been removed by soft power, they're crying, they're whining, they're complaining, they're saying it's the end of the world. So guess what? You couldn't understand with free speech. You only respect power? All right, we'll teach you. We'll teach you with power. That's fine. We can make that happen. So again, just want to say thank you to the audience. I'm so very proud of you guys. Thank you to Benny Johnson. Thank you to the people who, in front of the scenes and behind the scenes helped me to bring forward these different contacts so that we could push this. I'm very glad that we were able to do our part in this, and that this victory was won to make sure that animals like Jimmy Kimmel cannot lie about what happened to Charlie Kirk, cannot cover up his murder, cannot cover for terrorists. We're done with that. We're done with that. That version of the right, that version of conservatism is gone. This is the version that's willing to fight back. This is the version that's willing to take the fight to the enemy, to stop the violence, to stop the terrorism, to do what it takes. So thank you again, guys. And as always, I'll talk to you next time.